Welcome. My name is David Starnes, and I am the Practice Management Product Manager. I am really excited today to give you a first look at statement processing. We have put a high level of effort into the planning and design of this process, and I feel it'll be a big help to all of our practices using the software. Everything we're going to talk about today is covered in great detail on our Knowledge Owl website. I'm sure I'm going to mention it several times throughout the presentation, and I just want to encourage you all, if you have not already, to go out to the site, review the documentation, and even subscribe to any sections that relate directly to you. This will make sure that any time a new article is added, that you receive a notification. So, without further ado, let's take a look. Today, I'm going to be discussing and demonstrating some of the key features of our statement processing. This includes designed, intuitive, and efficient workflows, printable statement formats designed to increase patient collections, and a print and mail vendor offering enhanced integration and statement customization specific for your practice. Let's begin with the workflows. Statement processing lives in its own section within the billing portal. This gives you a single location to manage your responsible party billing. In addition, we have designed a process that will allow batches to be automatically created and even automatically sent to the print vendor. Using a warning notification system, we make sure that only clean statements are submitted. Statements that have warnings are held back in a past due status to be reviewed so they can be corrected before being sent out. So let's go into the software and see what this actually looks like. Here we are in the billing portal. And over on the left side here, you can see a statement section and then a ready to send and a batches section underneath that. So first I want to start off by introducing these two new screens. First, the ready to send screen. The ready to send screen displays all responsible party balances in the system. Now, by default, this screen will load and only show you those with warnings. This is allowing you the opportunity to go in and clean up any potential issues that could come up on future statements. In addition to that show warnings box, we also have a past due only box. And this is what I just discussed about the automatic statements. If something is removed, it shows up here as past due once it's removed from a batch. And what that essentially means is, think of statement batches as a bus of passengers going out to the print vendor or going to the printer. Well, anything in a past due status on this screen means they were kicked off the bus or they missed the bus. So they've had their opportunity to go out and they weren't sent. So those should take a higher priority than some of the other warnings. You'll want to keep those past dues really cleaned up and everything so that to make sure that people are getting their statements in a timely fashion. The final checkbox we have is show statements inside of grace period. What this is doing is, in the setup screen, we have a concept of minimum days since last statement. By default, that is set to 28. Now, anything underneath that 28 days is what we call the grace period. It will not show up on this screen until it's ready to be sent out. So everything you're seeing on the screen now is past that 28-day grace period. So they need to be sent out. Anything else is waiting to be sent out. Now, one of the things that I'll let you do is, if you were to come in here and uncheck the show warnings only, it would show you everything. Then, if you click the show statements inside a grace period, you can essentially see every responsible party balance in your system. And you could either build statements off that, or you could export it or do some other stuff with it, print it out, and get a list of those. So next, I want to go in and show you this More button. Inside the More button, we have the Change Display Settings, which will allow you to add some additional fields to this screen. But more importantly, we have the Migrate Statements option. So this will mean a lot more when I talk about the Batches screen in just a second. But what this is going to do is it'll allow you to migrate statement batches from batches that were sent out in our old legacy statement processing system to our new statement processing system. And that means you would be able to search for it in the history screens through the batches. If you do not migrate it, you would still have to go to the old claim submission history to see those old submissions. When you go into migration, you can either check a box and it'll migrate a full submission, or you can set a migrate by date and it'll search for certain submissions if you just want to get most recent ones. Once you've picked your box, you'll hit migrate and it'll go into in process status. That'll run in the background because it could take a little while to run, and then those will show up over in the batches screen. So speaking of the batches screen, let's go look at that one next. On our batches screen, it's going to load and show us any pending batches that are waiting to be reviewed and submitted. In this case, we do not have any of those. We will in a minute, but we don't right now. So in addition, this screen, like I said, works as a history screen. So you can go to the top and you can put in a statement ID or submission ID, or you can click the Advanced button. And from the Advanced button, you can go through and you have several different things you can go look for. And one of the biggest things we've added is the ability to search for claim ID or responsible party information. And what this will do is it'll go out and pull every statement batch that this claim ID has been inside of. So you'd be able to say if somebody came and said, hey, I never saw this on a statement, you could put the claim ID in, hit search, and it's going to go find all those batches where that claim ID was. You could then open the batch, view the statement, and show them, yes, you did receive it, and this is how many times you received it in. Now, if I just hit search, it's going to go show me every batch that's ever been ran. And in this case, you can see we've actually have migrated quite a few batches. In addition, we have some inactive batches. These are batches that were created, and for whatever reason, we determined we did not want to send those out. So now that we've had a chance to look at our batches screen, let's go back and actually create a manual batch of statements. So on this Ready to Send screen at the top, I'm going to click the New button. The New button is going to open the batch preparation screen. At the bottom, it's listing my predefined cycles from my setup. This will let me go in and pick one of these cycles based on letter range, day of the month. I can see the last time it was ran, and even the number of statements that it believes it's going to be able to find if we run that batch. So in this case, I'm just going to pick A through B. In addition, if I wanted to, I could set a custom message for this statement batch. So if this was in December, I might send out Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas or whatever I wanted to send out. In this case, we're not going to send any, so I'm just going to click the Create button. Now what this is going to do, and it's going to pop up and tell me, is it's going to create a batch job in the background that's going to go create these statements. In some cases, it could take a couple minutes for statements to be created. So we're going to make it so that we do not hold your screen hostage. You can go out and do anything you want to do while it's being created, and then just go to the batches screen when you're ready, and your batch should be there. In this case, we're going to click Close, and we're going to go look at our setup screen and discuss it briefly while our batch is being prepared for us. So on this Ready to Send screen, in the upper right, we're going to go click our gear icon, and then we're going to go to the setup button. This is going to launch that setup screen. I highly recommend you go to the Knowledge Owl website, and underneath the guides there is a configuration guide. That guide will walk you through setting up this screen for your practice. And that'll be the first thing you want to do before you build your first batch. On your screen, the cycles will not be filled out yet. You will have no cycles created. And that was done on purpose so that you can build that custom to your practice. You have a lot of different options. You can go through and build out batches that run daily. You could have A through Z set your day of the month to daily, and that's going to run and create a batch for you every single day. So every single morning you would come in and you could review and send those batches. You could also say you want to run weekly. You could set that same A through Z batch up for day of month Monday or day of month Friday, and it'll create it once a week for you. Or you can do something similar to what I've done here. You can set up your letter ranges A through B, F through K, L through S, and set a day of the month, the 1st, the 8th, the 15th, and those will run weekly. Now if you notice, mine are set up for manual mode. If you set a day of the month, that is how you set up partial automatic statements and automatic statements. If that day of the month is set, the batch will automatically be created for you overnight. In addition, if this auto send statement cycle batches is checked, that batch that was automatically created will be automatically sent to the print vendor if your print vendor is Data Media or RevSpring. Now, in our case, we're manual mode so that nothing will be automatically created or sent. We completely control it. A couple of the other things you'll want to review is your threshold. Mine is currently set to $5. By default, it will be set to 10. The minimum days will be set to 28 days. Your processor should already be set by the update or by the implementation team. In addition, we have our messages section. You can set your messages to be based on statement aging or statement counts. Statement aging is simply if this patient responsible balance falls into this aging category, this is the message I'm going to send on the statement. As opposed, statement count says if this is the 3rd statement they've received, this is what they're going to get. And finally, we have this new section down at the bottom that we're going to talk about a little later in the presentation, where we can send past due and final notices based on that statement level. By default, these are turned on. Past due notices will come in at level 3 and final notice will come in at level 6. If you do not want these notices, you will need to come in here and set them both to not applicable. So now that we've kind of reviewed our statement settings screen, let's go take a look at our batches screen and see if our batch is ready for us. We'll research, and our batch is in fact ready for us. You can see on this line we have a pending statement batch. It was created on 4/26 at 11 a.m. We have 73 statements and 9 of those have warnings for $24,876, and it's even going to tell us our letter range that we ran it for, A through B. We can double click on this line to open our batch details, which is going to let us go review those warnings. So now that we're inside the batch, you can see our 9 warnings are here at the top of the screen. Now, some of these warnings, if you look at the balance, are for credit balances, so those can be ignored. They did not qualify for the statement batch. We're going to start by looking at this top one. If we go and click the View button underneath Actions, it's going to open up the statement details and tell us what's wrong with our statement. In this case, you can see responsible party is a minor. We're going to go ahead and click this Fix Issue and just double check and be sure that that information is accurate. In this case, we see that the father does not have a date of birth set. Therefore, it's being calculated as a minor because we're not sure. We're going to go ahead and enter his date for him. And we'll go ahead and save that. And we'll close our patient setup screen. You can see it's going to automatically retest this statement and we no longer have a warning. So this one has been corrected. We'll click our X and go back out. And it's now dropped off our screen. We have 65 can be submitted. 8 cannot be submitted because 8 have warnings. Now, the rest of these are credits. And let's say we're not going to worry about Vicky's right now so that we can see her on the past due screen. We're going to go ahead and say we're done working these. So now we're ready to submit our statement batch. So let's talk about these options up at the top real quick. Send is going to send the batch to the print vendor that this batch was for the processor or the batch that is created for. Print would allow me to print the statement batch in-house. Export is going to export a list of all the information you see below. So you get the warning indicator, responsible party, and that stuff. Download will download a file, the same file that would have been sent to the print vendor. So I know that some sites are not using RevSpring or Data Media, but they're using a third-party vendor. This is where you would click the download button and your window would pop up and you'd be able to then upload that wherever you want it to go. Finally, we have these 2 or 3 buttons at the bottom. Inactivate would say, I don't want to do anything with this batch. I want to rerun it. I didn't mean to just run A through B. I want to get some more. So you could inactivate it. Remove and remove as past due is used for individual statements. If you go through and click a box and say, oh, Rubina here, she's the doctor's cousin and we don't want to send her a statement. We didn't mean for that to go. We're going to end up writing that off. So we're just going to remove that from the batch. And it's going to go through the system and take that out. You can see it with a strike through now. So now when we go and click send, she will not be included. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's send this batch to Data Media. When we click send, we're going to get our window to come up and it's showing us our processor where it's going to. It's just recapping our statement ID, the type, it's a cycle for A through B. We're currently unsubmitted in a pending status and there is no custom message. So we'll go ahead and click send. And just like our create process, this is going to send it in the background so that you can continue working. It's got a couple steps it's going to do where it's going to go set some information for you. So we'll go ahead and click OK and close our submission window. And our screen's going to reload and we now have a submitted date. So at this point, you're done. You have submitted statements. They've gone out. And there's nothing left to do except to review your past due statements. So let's return to the ready to send screen. And we have our show warnings only, but let's also check our past due only. It's going to rerun the search on this screen and show us any of them that missed their statement window. So here we can see the credit balances we're not concerned about. However, we do have Vicky Blake for $81.65. She should have went out, but she didn't because we didn't fix the warnings. So if we double click, it's going to open her statement details just like it did on the other screen. And you can see here the past due flag is set and responsible party credits is the reason she has a warning. If we look at the bottom, the balance is she has a credit balance of $25.25. So the system is saying that because she has a credit balance, we're stopping the statement so that it can be reviewed so that you can ensure that the correct balance is being sent out to the patient. We can click Fix Issue And that's going to take us to the transaction history screen. From there, we can open up our history and we can right click and go to credits, and we can apply that money or transfer it, refund it, whatever we needed to do through the credits and the add payment buttons. Once that was completed, we could click the X. It's going to retest it. Since we didn't actually correct it, it's going to stay here, but it would have fallen off and been ready to go. Now, if we corrected this, we could then create a batch just for this one statement, or we could close it and click the checkbox and create a batch from selected statements by going through the New button. And that, in a nutshell, is our statement processing system. And just to recap, what we just went through was our manual statement process. If you were doing partially automatic, the New button where we selected the cycle would have already been done for us. We would have just came in the morning and went to the batches screen, and the batch would have been there. We would then go in and review it just like we did. And finally, if we were in a fully automatic state, we would have skipped the batch creation and the batch review. And the only step we would have had to do is when we came in the morning to go into the ready to send screen and review the past due only statements. Everything else would have went automatically. So now let's review our statement formats. We've updated our print formats in the system, and we currently support 3 different forms. We have a statement, a past due notice, and a final notice. Our print vendor has participated in numerous patient collection studies, and what they found was the majority of patients' payments are made in response to the first statement and then the final notice. Given this knowledge, we made the choice to offer past due and final notices as part of the statement processing workflow. Here on our statement format, we did a couple of things to help the patient understand what they're looking at. First, we have printed the amount due clearly in 3 different locations. We don't want there to be any questions about what the patient is expected to pay. Next, we built the body of the statement to show all the details grouped by claim. So what you're going to see is a single line displaying the full charge and the sum of all the payments and adjustments that have been applied to the claim. Then, underneath that line, you'll have all the details that add up to those numbers. Now, the default statement processing setup that we discussed is once a patient has received 2 statements, their 3rd statement will actually be a past due notice. This notice is designed to get their attention. The goal with this notice is to generate a payment or a phone call from the patient. You can see in the upper right we have past due notice in all caps. We again list the amount due in 3 places on the notice, just like on the normal statement. And finally, we've changed the body of the statement to a letter format, informing the patient that payment is expected at this time. In that same default system setup that we talked about, the final notice is the 6th statement. This notice is designed as their last chance to pay prior to their balance being turned over to collection agency. Final notice is stated multiple times on the form colored in red to really grab the patient's attention. One important thing to note is these notices are configurable as to when or even if they're used, and we've showed you how to do that in the statement setup screen. Now, on that setup screen, there's a checkbox where you can actually choose to include the detail in a second page. So what you would see is you'd get this statement notice as your first page, and the second page would have that body and the detail and your settings there to include the AR and all that stuff in with it. So we've gone over how to create and send statements, and we've talked about our statement formats. Now I want to move into talking about our recommended print and mail vendor, Data Media Associates. Part of having an efficient statement process is partnering with a print and mail vendor that complements that process. We feel that is what we have found in Data Media Associates. They offer an enhanced statement design that is proven to improve patient collection rates. You can see here it's just a really good format that is easy to read, and it's also easy for the patient to find the information that they need in order to pay you. They also offer practices the ability to send statements over email and text, so statements have the ability to reach patients within hours of submitting the batch. In addition, they also offer automated pre-collect letters based on the statement level, just like we looked at within the software. Finally, one of the more exciting features is they are able to put a payment link on the statement using PaySimple that will allow patients to make payments that automatically post back into the system, applying to the claims on the statement they paid. If these features interest you, then I highly recommend you reach out to our support team either by phone or email, and they'd be happy to work with you. So we've gone over a lot today, and you may be wondering what's next. First, I highly recommend that you have any and all relevant staff attend one of these webinars. Next, be sure to review and then complete the statement configuration guide that is found on our Knowledge Owl education site. It'll make sure that setup screen is exactly the way you want it. Finally, you'll want to review the appropriate processing guide for running statements for your practice, whether that is automatic, partially automatic, or manual. All of this can be found on our Knowledge Owl site under Using iSalus, then Billing, then Statements in the Guide section. So you'll go to Using iSalus, then you'll go to Billing, then Statements, and then Statement Guides. And you'll go through the Getting Started with the New Statement process, which is a quick checklist, and then your Statement Configurations Guide, which is going to show you how to get to that setup screen, and then answer a series of questions that's going to help you complete that setup screen. I want to thank you all for your time today. We greatly appreciate your feedback. So if you have any questions or comments, please reach out to us through the support email. And don't forget to go out and review that documentation. I'm sure it'll be a great help to you and your practice.